Welcome back to the Unspoken Truth Podcast. My name is Joel.
And I'm Sebastian.
This show is about men striving to be men, and these men of all ages. So today we're going to touch on an unspoken truth that's sometimes very difficult for men to talk about.
And that's pornography. You know, last podcast we talked about suppressing our reality with some poor habits. And today we're just going to talk about this one specifically and how we can kind of step away from this and how it really affects us and how society accepts it, really.
Because last week we talked about hurt
Yeah.
and how men want to be viewed as strong men, independent men. And we talked about how being in denial of our hurts is what keeps us in our hurt. And when we stay in our hurt, we tend to act out in certain addictions.
And pornography being one of them, right? Society kind of sees this as such a socially acceptable thing. We don't really see the ramifications of it so urgently, especially with, hookup culture. Science always telling us that, masturbation is, good for you. It releases stress, all these positive things. It's like, why wouldn't we do it, right? When we get all the dopamine.
And God did make sex wonderful and an outlet.
Pleasurable.
In a union with your partner, especially when you marry under God, you're one. So that helps the relationship. That makes the relationship stronger. But as we're growing up, we have these views and these ideas of sex, and pornography is one of those things that really skews those views.
Sure. Also, science says that, this is our instinct drive. So when we pursue this and we masturbate or whatever, all of our drive to be successful and have a career and educate ourselves goes down because our body feels like we've already succeeded in our job as humans, right? We're trying to reproduce as best we can. And it puts you in this false sense of reality like we talk about, where you feel comfortable, you feel in this good state, when really, you could have all these problems around you in your life.
And I think pornography and masturbation gives you a false sense of intimacy.
Sure.
It tells you that you're connecting in some way, shape, or form, but you're really not connecting.
Mm-hmm.
You're actually disconnecting. And I'd rather have the truth than to have
an illusion, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
The illusion or the lie actually upsets me more than the actual truth. And if that's the truth and I'm alone or I don't have that intimacy with somebody, then I got to build it, whether it's sexual or not sexual. It's got to be a building reciprocal relationship, just like any friendship.
Yeah. Everything great comes from, you start building, and it's a long process to it. But a lot of times, let's say you have a problem and you're with a partner and you're like, okay, we'll just have sex, and like we don't have to figure this out. We'll just sweep it under the rug and we'll have sex. And it's like, that's exactly the false sense of reality you create for yourself, because it's like, okay, we're intimate, we love each other, like that's it. The problem doesn't matter. We love each other, supposedly, based on the sex.
And all that comes up because if you do not deal with the underlying issues,
like
the underlying roots, like we talked about in the first episode, we tend to then not only act out in pornography, but then we start becoming obsessed with it. You'll notice that if you watch pornography and you're deep in that addiction, that no matter how much you want to watch more. Or if you watch more, then you want to watch things that you never thought you'd watch, which I find it so conniving that it messes with your mind so much, because I know I struggled with it for years. It took me a long time, a lot of self-healing, a lot of deep heart condition change.
And discipline, for sure.
Yeah, to really get out of having that obsession. And that's just the obsession. I'm not even dealing with the physical part. Just the mind obsession that comes with the addiction is pretty powerful.
Yeah, and like you were saying, you get so deep into it and you start watching things you never watch. That's just the human condition. When we have something in our lives, and once it stops becoming a risk or it stops becoming stimulating, we just crave more and more and more. Like same with caffeine or sugar. We have so much, and then it doesn't have the same effect, and we need more. And that's the same with pornography, right? We if we don't discipline ourselves to have a limit, or at least slow down or cap out, then it will just exponentially grow, because you don't have that cap. You don't discipline yourself or hold yourself back. And it makes sense, because like we said, society sees this as a normal. It's not frowned upon in any way currently in our current culture.
And I believe that it should be. I believe that the ramifications of it, which I'm using your word because that was a perfect word, are so dire, especially if you're in a relationship. Some people think, oh, this adds to the relationship. We're adventuring. And to some degree you are, But the cost that comes with it, where your partner might feel less than, or you start obsessing over that more than your partner, or you don't want to talk about your hurts with your partner, so you run to this, the ramifications of the relationship falling apart are pretty high.
Sure. But I think this all goes, again, like we've talked about, back to society and how, we have this hookup culture where we don't have to care about people. We can literally just hit them up, go have sex, and then leave, right? And that whole process is really, it's not punished as much as we think. Like you said, like we don't really see initially, but it does have like fallouts in your relationships because you sweep problems under the rug. You don't confront things, and you don't build the relationships. You literally just know the person as a resource, a tool, and not, a person.
And it's important that we learn how to speak to one another. This show is trying to build a foundation with you for us to communicate and talk about these unspoken truths that really affect us as men.
Yeah.
And us wanting to be independent and strong, knowing that we're going to fall short sometimes.
Yeah.
You had a great idea of how culture looks at it, but then also how we can try to avoid some of these pitfalls.
Yeah, so we always need to find steps to, pull back from these habits because, again, society accepts it. So it's going to be really difficult for us to stop when there's no serious ramifications right away. So personally, for me, through my experience, I have an accountability report with one of my close friends that we put pornography, masturbation, and orgasm as one of the lists where I set a cap for the week. And every week, if I can stay under that cap, I'll reduce it. If I can stay under, I'll keep reducing until, obviously until it's gone as a habit. And then obviously sometimes I'm going to fall short, and then I have to tell that to my friend. And, the guilt that kind of comes with that is a good motivator to kind of reduce the habit, of course. But also he supports me, he knows I'm going to fail sometimes. He knows I'm going to come short sometimes. And it has been proven very efficient for me.
And that accountability is so important in all aspects of our life to have somebody that we trust, that we can confide in with some of these unspoken truths. And it actually sets a standard for us as men.
Yeah.
Because we want to be men of honor, men of integrity. I want to be known as somebody who's a good father to my son and somebody who's a great husband. And those attributes have to be earned through sacrifice.
Yeah.
And sometimes that sacrifice is being vulnerable and having some friends that will support in your growth.
Yeah, I mean, the best way to, do anything a little bit better or more efficiently is always to shine light on it, A lot of CEO, like I've read a lot of leadership books, and they say, treat your life as you're always on a movie that everyone can watch. And like that'll really make you rethink what you spend your time doing and how you spend your day and, the kind of poor things you do with your life. But it's all about finding that person in your life that you can trust, right? Because there's going to be a lot of people out there that don't support you because it puts a mirror in front of them and reflects, oh man, I do that all the time. Why are you stopping? Because like we said, society doesn't really care. But for you, if this is a priority, that'll help you grow to become that independent, successful man that you want to be, and provider. It's important that we do take these steps. And maybe you don't have a person. Feel free to reach out to us. That's the whole point of this show, is for us to connect with you and help you guys get through some of the the small struggles that people don't see every day. So you can leave a comment, join our Facebook group. We're there to reach out to you guys.
And these steps that we talk about, they're not just things that we believe in theory. They're things that we do. Mm-hmm. Having had an experience for me with God and allowing him to touch my heart really made me feel that, I am going to fall short. We're not perfect. But as long as I keep striving to be that man, that godly man, you know what? I will get there eventually. If I'm not there now, I will get there eventually. And it is through that self-discipline and bringing your body under submission, because we can't just do everything that feels good, because just because it feels good doesn't make it good. You tell a child, do you want ice cream or do you want vegetables? You're going to choose ice cream every day. And if you give them that ice cream, eventually they're going to get sick. Mm-hmm. So we have to learn how to bring our bodies under submission, especially, we work out. We train MMA. I teach MMA. We lift. We're constantly putting our body under subjection and submission. We have to do that also mentally and spiritually. And I think some of these tools are great avenues for us to get there.
Distracting yourself is always going to be the best, right? The more your brain is taken up with other things, the less likely you're going to do that, right? And I think the main reason why we do it so much or watch porn so much is because of the leisure time we have, in the US with, our leisure time is through the roof. We don't have to work so much to actually have food on the table, to, have a roof over our head as compared to other places. So we have so much leisure time, we have all this space in our brain, like, oh, what are we going to do with? So distraction is also a really good avenue to avoid, these poor habits, I think.
And like you said, in today's era of being isolated and the disease of COVID-19 that's out, we're stuck more in front of these screens that are so accessible to some really bad, I don't even know how to call it.
Content.
Especially now in today's era, it's permissible. If you're not looking at porn, you're almost, oh, you're weird. And it
That's
should
so
be the
true,
other
yeah.
way around. It's culture so backwards, and we need to go back to some of those great standards.
It's funny. I have a experience with that because I never masturbated till I was 17. So whenever we'd have like parties or something, and like we played like questions games, they'd like ask you, oh, do you ever masturbate? Or like, what's the most you masturbate a day? I'm like, oh, I never masturbate. And none of them believe me ever. I was like, I thought it was weird just because, if you never experienced it, there's no reason to experience it because you don't know what it's like. But they were all like, no way. And like, that was weird to me. But then eventually when I did, I was like, oh, okay, this makes sense.
This
Why?
is what they're talking about.
This
Well, that's pretty interesting, and thank you for being so transparent and real with us, because it takes us being transparent and real in order for us to develop and grow. If we don't have that transparency and we stay to our denial and like, that's not me, well, I don't deal with that, we never grow.
Yeah.
And that growth, it grows exponentially. We have the opportunity to do this podcast now because of our growth.
Yeah, for sure.
And I think it's important for you out there who are listening and viewing to allow yourselves to grow, to allow yourselves to become that man that you're really striving to be, because it is possible.
But it does take sacrifice. And that's kind of the question you always have to ask yourself at the end of the day, because a lot of us want, this great life. We want to be this great man, but are we willing to pay the price? And most of the time it's not, we don't, but we could take small steps to where we could pay a little bit and we're like, okay, we see the benefit. So that reward system hits and then you're like, okay, I'm willing to sacrifice a little bit more. And it's just a process, right?
And that process is a great process, a process of finding yourself.
Sure.
And as people on this earth, we are searching for our purpose. And through these sacrifices, these efforts, we tend to find who we really are and who we really want to be.
Yeah, and these distractions are what kind of cloud us, right, from finding who we want to be. Imagine like just sitting in your room with yourself, nothing else, no distractions for a day. Like what would you could pick yourself apart and you'd probably be ashamed of who you are, right? So let's take some steps to kind of build the person you want to be and how you're going to get there. That's our whole, goal for the show, is to kind of get you to where you want to be.
And it's so important because pornography is so pervasive right now through our technology that we got to remember that some of these women and men, I had a show called Joy in My House, and I brought on a gentleman who was a porn star, and he would talk about the shame and guilt that he had and how they would have these girls who were actually sex trafficked. They didn't want to do it. They just got caught up in it. And then they had pimps and they had people who were controlling them. And sometimes you even convince yourself that, oh no, these girls want to do that. This is good for me. When if you were to look at the reality of it, again, step out of that denial, you would realize how seedy and how bad this industry is and what they do to women.
Yeah, and even if they wanted to be in it, they always regret it after. Big porn star Mia Malkova, I believe, or Mia Khalifa, she got out of the game for a while now. She's been a social media influencer, and she's talked about on a bunch of podcasts before about how hard it was for her to just scrap that image, because the way she'd walk into a room and how people would look at her. And she says, I would totally, like, they didn't pay me anything, chicken scratch, and for what? For everybody to see her in this certain light. That in the moment maybe it was like, oh yeah, she made $16,000 at 17, 18, whatever age she started, but now it's like money isn't a question anymore for her. There's so many avenues to make money in society, and she realized like that was a really poor decision of hers, and that kind of goes into today's societal exception of OnlyFans, right? If you're a younger viewer, you kind of know this. If you're not and you're older, it's basically a platform where girls post explicit content. Where initially it was supposed to be for like social media influencers to post exclusive content, just for their diehard fans that could pay and so on.
And that's what some of these platforms or some of these apps do is they make it so accessible and easy to be okay with pornography, explicit pictures, and there's an allure with the finances,
of
with
course.
the money. So you're gonna make some good money, but like you said, they always regret it, and that image to clean up is such a scar in their heart that it's very difficult to deal with.
It's like a question at a party, right? Where it's like, would you either, would you cut your finger off for $1 million? And then it's like, no. It's like, okay, what about 2 million? That's kind of where we're at with this, right? Because before, Pornhub was like paying them a little bit. They're like, well, and girls would do it. And now it's like, and then it kind of died down. All these porn stars are getting out of the game. And then now there's OnlyFans. Like, okay, well, would you do it for $1 million? And a lot of girls, they see that number and they can't even comprehend it and what that, or the ramifications it has on their future life. So a lot of girls do pursue it. Like Bella Thorne, she made $1 million in a day on OnlyFans posting explicit content. And, it's a big thing. It's a big market. And a lot of people are putting a lot of money into it. So it's no wonder that there's a lot of girls on there. But, for us as men, it's important not to get distracted by these things. No matter, it's difficult for us because, we have these addictions and we're trying to cut it. And for what? So we just we get less pleasure in our lives. But there's actually some serious rewards at the end that we just are unaware of.
And those serious rewards, it's like anything. Delayed gratification does come.
Yeah.
And if you delay your gratification, the gratification is so much greater. Me and my fiance, we don't have intercourse. We don't. We waiting for us to get married and do it right for that. And our sexual chemistry is off the charts. And it's almost like it's good. We already thinking it's going to be so amazing and we haven't even done it yet, which I think is a great motivator to also do things right, to have this higher standard. Doesn't mean you have to have the standard, but for us, that standard and that goal to get there seems so powerful. It seems so rewarding.
And it keeps your relationship completely real. Nothing gets, there's no way to sweep things under, There's no pleasure dome that you could just go to and escape all your problems with. Everything's always there up in front. Yeah.
So I hope that we hit a chord with you. I hope that you connected with some of these unspoken truths that we're dealing with. And we want you to link up with us. We want you to like our fan page on Facebook. We want you to, here on YouTube, click that subscribe button.
Comment.
So you don't miss another episode.
Let us know.
Yeah. And definitely engage with us. We're really about community. We're really about wanting to be a part of your growth, just like we need you to be a part of our growth here.
Yeah, like we said, if there's nobody in your life that you can really trust or go to, we're always here. Leave your comments below and we'll definitely take a look and, work with you guys if that's what you'd like.
So thank you for joining us here on the Unspoken Truth Podcast. My name is Joel.
And I'm Sebastian, and we'll see you guys next time. Thank you for making it this far. If you learned or related to anything on today's episode, feel free to drop a like and subscribe for more weekly content as we post every Monday at 2 p.m.
And if you want to connect at a deeper level, join our Facebook group page, follow our TikTok for snippets and teasers for any future videos.
And if you're looking for material mentioned in this video, all the links will be in the description below.
And we will see you on the next episode of The Unspoken Truth.
See you guys.
Can we skip to the good part?